Jen Palmieri, you have a new limited series on YouTube premiering today titled Long Play, Winning the South. And in it, you explore the region you call the new political epicenter of the country. Why so? And tell us about it.
So if you look at, first it's just population changes, but then also voting rights changes. The South is emerging as the political epicenter of the country. We have with Georgia, Texas, North Carolina, 3 states that are all growing, that in the next census are likely to add congressional seats. They're going to matter more in the Electoral College. And then, of course, with the voting rights changes, we've seen how all of these states in the South have changed their congressional maps. And, I think that the South has driven politics for a long time in America. We haven't necessarily understood that, and we haven't looked deeply at it. And so what we're doing, it's me, Mitch Landrieu, former mayor of New Orleans, Aaron Haynes, who's based out of Atlanta. Myself, I'm Southern enough to know not to call myself a Southerner because I was born in Mississippi, lived in the South until I was 11, and then left. But what we find is there's each state that we go to, there's a fascinating story that's revealing itself there, and being told, and then finding the new emerging leaders as well that are telling you the story about how the power is going to change in the South.
So, Jen, the first episode focuses on Georgia and the race for the U.S. Senate there. You spoke with Democratic incumbent Jon Ossoff about his re-election campaign and his opponent. Let's watch a clip.
This is a disastrous nominee for the GOP. It's just not who we are in the state of Georgia.
And still, you can't expect that it's going to be anything but close here.
This will be the closest Senate race in the country. We have to build the most massive grassroots get out the vote effort in Georgia history, because we also expect some of the most determined attacks on voting rights in modern American history, right? Fulton County, Georgia, where the President of the United States sent Director of National Intelligence to oversee a ballot raid here in Georgia.
That's something that I think people are really worried about when they see what's happening with Fulton County.
It should worry people.
And Jen, Georgia is such an interesting state, right, where it's never really been full on Trump, right? He lost it once.
Yeah.
They defied him in the Senate. He's had feuds with Governor Kemp at various times. And Ossoff, there's plenty of 2028 buzz there, assuming he wins this fall. But zero in on what that topic of conversation, this idea of also this is a state that many feel like is ripe to be tampered with by the White House.
Yeah, so it's a fascinating place. And what's really interesting is we had Jon Ossoff and we had Marjorie Taylor Greene, and they said the same things about Donald Trump, which is he does not understand Georgia. And Georgia is and this is what's great about the show, is spend a week in these states. Georgia is very different from any other southern state. And Senator Ossoff kind of gets at that when he talks about the history of the state, right? In Atlanta, a decision was made, after Jim Crow by Mayor Hartsfield. We are going to be the city that is too busy to hate because racism is bad for business, right? So Atlanta grew up differently because of that, because of the civil rights movement. It's the cradle of the Confederacy, but also the birthplace of the civil rights movement. Jon Ossoff, as a Jewish senator, reflects that. He was sworn in with a prayer book that was from a synagogue where Martin Luther King spoke and was bombed subsequently. This stuff is very present in Georgia, and they're very aware of what Trump is up to. And we also talked to Black Voters Matter leader Latasha Brown, who was it's as Senator Ossoff goes on to say in that clip. To understand Georgia, you have to understand we are going to be motivated by these efforts to suppress our vote. And everyone from Ossoff to this, Republican Secretary of State is going to tell you they had the most secure elections in Georgia. And if we've seen anything from the primaries, just more and more people are voting.
Hey, Adrian Elrod. Jen Palmieri just said that she's smart enough to know that she shouldn't call herself a Southerner because she was born there. She left at the age of 11, so that doesn't really qualify her. You, Adrian, are a legit Southerner, Southern to the bone. So I ask you, I know you're excited about Jen's series here, but I'm willing to bet that of these 6 episodes, there's going to be one that's going to be focused on the major other theater of operations this fall in the South, which is Texas. So talk a little bit about what you see unfolding there. I think a lot of Democrats feel pretty confident now about Jon Ossoff, both because his performance has been strong, he's raised so much money, and the Republicans picked not the Brian Kemp candidate, but the Donald Trump candidate to run against him. So people are kind of breathing a little bit easier about Georgia. Yeah. But Texas is very much on everybody's mind as we head towards November. What do you see happening there?
Yeah, first of all, I'm super excited for this series. As a Southerner and somebody who has been working in Southern states quite a lot during my political career and watched the downfall of Democrats in these states, I do see an uptick. Obviously, Georgia, if you want to count North Carolina, which I do, is a Southern state. Those are two of the most important states to us in the 2024 presidential campaign. So it's great to see Jen and Mitch really focusing on this part of the country because it is a part the Democrats have to win back. Look, in Texas tends to break my heart a lot, John. I ran Hillary Clinton's communications for her primary in Texas in 2008. Obviously, that was in a Democratic primary. But I've watched that state sort of teeter. Statewide, it tends to it's been electing Republicans for essentially the last 30 years. But of course, there are some deep blue pockets throughout the state. And I think the real question is this the year that Democrats can win back a major statewide seat, in this case, a federal seat in Texas? And I think we've got the perfect candidate with James Tallarico. I went to school at TCU, Texas Christian University in Fort Worth. It's where I went to college. And the barometer that I use is sort of like, where are my college friends when it comes to this election season? A lot of them are, Clinton, Trump voters. Some were Obama, Clinton, Biden, Trump voters. A lot of them voted in the Democratic primary for Tallarico when they have not voted in a Democratic primary in a long time because they were so inspired by him, by his faith, by the way he communicates, by the way he wants to bring this country together. And of course, they're also very frustrated with Trump and his policies. So I have high hopes for Texas. Again, it tends to break my heart, but I think if there's a time and a season that we can win back a seat in Texas, it's 2026 with Jon Ossoff.